If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
Follow. So let's talk about this segue. As Tommy mentioned, the Knicks are reportedly among the suitors interested in acquiring Raptors combo forward OG Anunoby. So this is a new report coming out on Monday by Shams Charania of The Athletic. He says New York and Phoenix have expressed interest in making a deal for Anunoby. He says New York has shown a willingness to offer multiple first-round picks to make a deal happen. SNY's Ian Bagley also reported last week that the Knicks had expressed a desire to include multiple first-round picks in an Anunoby deal, but noted that that was taking place in December before the Knicks had went on that winning streak and they had been struggling mightily, that those conversations happened about multiple first-round picks for OG Anunoby. So we don't know, the way I read it, if this is essentially new interest in the Knicks wanting to pursue OG Anunoby. Is this something that Shams is referring to that happened last month? That's not clear, but what is clear, the Knicks have expressed interest in trading multiple first-round picks for OG. So I'll start the question and the conversation with this. Are you comfortable moving multiple firsts for OG Anunoby?
In short, yes. He's the type of player that you value, that has really a ton of value in today's NBA. A true 3-and-D wing, a good scorer, a great defender. There's just a lot to like there. You piece it together. And in terms of if you're only giving up first-round picks, again, the Knicks are going to have to consolidate their picks at some point. I understand you'd like it for a true superstar. If and when those guys ever become available is up for grabs. If you trade for Anunoby now, the assumption is you're comfortable giving him an extension at some point. But he does have at least, the rest of the season, obviously, and the rest of next season on his current contract before you kind of face those dilemmas. You can readdress it this offseason, get him in the building, develop a level of comfort. As far as the picks go, again, there's, if it's the Bucks protected pick and the Knicks pick, obviously, for me, that's a no brainer to get a player of OG's talent. But the way I look at it, I would really be surprised if this talks continue and if this thing has legs. My assumption is it's because the Raptors are want to take back RJ Barrett in the deal. Barrett, a Toronto native, plays for Team Canada, obviously has Canadian roots. And if they didn't trade Barrett in the deal, where does OG fit? Is he going to play the 2? Is Barrett going to get shifted down to the 2? Is OG play the 3? We've seen. We have a year and a half of sample size here that Tibbs doesn't want to play Randall at the 5. So I thought maybe, you could see maybe OG and RJ at the forward spots and RJ at the 5. Maybe he would adjust that if you have a player as talented as OG that needs minutes. But I'm just not sure kind of how everything would shake out, especially when you have Brunson, Grimes, and IQ to kind of man the backcourt primarily. I'm just not sure how all that would shake out unless the Knicks sent out RJ Barrett in the deal to Toronto. So, and the other thing is, if my assumption is, and I'm high on OG on Anunoby, but I think a lot of people that I respect their basketball opinion are even higher on him than I am. And there's been talk that if he ever got put to the open market, that teams would really throw the kitchen sink at the Raptors to try to get their hands on this guy. So my assumption is it would take a lot more than just multiple first-round draft picks. You'd probably have to include another promising young player. Again, whether that's Grimes or Barrett. I just think Barrett makes a lot of sense for obvious reasons.
So I tweeted this this weekend. I say it on this episode. Like I feel like in talking about OG, I have to hand in my basketball nerd card. Because as you said, a lot of people around the league and a lot of people who cover this game that I respect as well really think highly of OG Anunoby. That being said, I would be very wary of giving up multiple first-round picks for OG Anunoby. Now, I think it depends on certain things. Now, if you're talking about trading out of this year's draft, because you have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, that I think I'm a little more okay with, because you're not talking about any damage towards your long-term future of trading multiple first-round picks down the line. Because essentially, the plan is still to trade for a star. If you're talking about trading, 1 year picks this year and then a protected pick next year or 2 years from now.
Mhm.
Again, not as concerned with that. If you get into the conversation you had with Don, the Donovan Mitchell conversation,
Okay.
where you're talking about your unprotected, your own picks, and they're 2 years out, and then it kind of locks you into being unable to trade your own pick for a couple of years. That's where I walk away from the table when I say I can't do that. I think OG is a very good player. He's an excellent defensive player. He's shown he can hit the three ball. I just think for a guy who has not really been healthy all that often, like this is a guy who's not played 70 games very often in his career. I think he's only done it maybe once. And a guy who's a good offensive player, but definitely not a guy who's definitely not a 2. I mean, maybe he's a 3. I can't give up all these first round picks for him. Now, I think this market has been kind of screwed up with the Rudy Gobert trade,
Right.
and to some degree, even the DeJounte Murray trade, where you're seeing 4, 3, 5 first round picks getting moved for some of these guys. I think that's why, Jay Crowder is still sitting at home, because nobody's giving up, multiple first round picks for a guy like Jay Crowder. I would hope that the Knicks will be able to reset the market in a trade for OG Anunoby, where, again, if you're trading on this year's draft, whereas you're picking a Dallas pick, I can live with that. But the future picks is where I would pause. And I'll be honest, I don't think I would trade RJ Barrett in a deal for OG. Now I don't like the fit either, but to me, if I get OG Anunoby, then I'm then looking to move Barrett, and now I'm really trying to pursue a starter. I don't know who's out there, but
Right.
I'm now redirecting Barrett somewhere else. I think that multiple picks and RJ, I think it's too much value. Like I would not do that. But I think RJ becomes expendable, because I don't necessarily see how RJ and OG fit, because I think RJ is best suited to play the 3 right now.
A good point. Yes, I think 6'7" wing. I think he's definitely the 3 is where you want to keep him, and alongside Randall. The reason I like the fit is because having a guy like that, pairing him with Grimes on the wing. This way, you have Randall and Brunson as your primary scorers, and then you have OG and Grimes as kind of the defensive lockdown perimeter guys that are very versatile, can guard multiple positions. You have IQ coming off the bench. There's a lot to like there. But you're right. It's important to note. Not all first round picks are created equal. Like that's
Right.
a very important point. If the Knicks are talking their 2027 unprotected and a 2029, then I again agree. I step away from the table. And you're right. That's probably what Ujai Masiri is looking for, because he's a smart, shrewd GM or president, whatever they call him. But yes, so I definitely that's definitely worth noting. If the Knicks give up a first this year, whether it's their own or the Mavs pick, and then one of the other protected picks from Washington. Again, they have the Bucks protected pick, they have Washington's protected pick, they have the Pistons protected pick. Include one of those. That's kind of more along the lines what I was assuming. Again, while you're looking further down the line, past Brunson's current contract, past Randall's current contract, then I'm very hesitant unless you're getting a star back in the deal. If you're, I'm not willing to trade one of those unprotected. If you put protections on it, then we can have some conversations. But a guy that just has, that's going to be a free agent in 16 months, I'm not willing to put those picks on the table too. I should have specified.
And when we talk about OG, I mean, how much of an advantage or how much better do you think the Knicks become if he gets added? Like I don't know who goes out, but in a world where maybe it's RJ or maybe it's Toppin and Reddish or whoever, like assuming some guys are gone, but the core of definitely Brunson and Randall are still here. Like, where does OG take the Knicks at this point? Like, are they definitely a playoff team at that point? Can they get higher than 6? Or are they still a play-in? Like, where do they lie after a OG Anunoby trade potentially?
Yeah, I think they obviously it depends on what they send out, but assuming that it's primarily draft capital, then I think they definitely strengthen their roster, they improve their roster, and it makes it more likely that they get the 6th. I still don't think they're anywhere near the cream of the crop, the top 4 seeds in the East. But I would say OG is only 24 himself. He's younger than Toppin, I believe, or the same age. So if you could, if that's the type of player, and my assumption also is that if they trade for him, they have an understanding of what he's looking for in terms of an extension. Maybe it's a sign and extend. Maybe it's a handshake agreement between the his OG's agents and the Knicks front office, and it's kind of, or at least an understanding, an implicit understanding. This is what we're going to be looking for. This is kind of what we'd accept on a multi-year extension this offseason. Those are the type of conversations, because I think he's a player you build around. And again, even if you have to give up draft capital to get him, one of the other things we talked about is, even though you send out capital that you hope to use in a trade to acquire a superstar, the team that trades the next superstar, in my opinion, would value OG Anunoby on an extended contract, or even, with 1 year left on his deal,
Yeah.
a 25-year-old OG, as opposed to a protected draft pick, or the the Knicks 2023 pick, something along those lines. I think that player on that, at that stage of his career, has more value than a draft pick. But yeah, it's fascinating to see, because are the Raptors buyers or sellers, or are they staying put? Are they going to, it sounds like they're considering moving Van Vliet. If they move Van Vliet, does that make it more or less likely that they move OG? These questions may be determined. I think we're going to have very little activity right up until like a day or two before the deadline. One trade falls through, and then teams, based on how they did like the 2 games prior, may make a decision for the rest of the season. That's just kind of the way it works sometimes. And it seems like no team's willing to be the first team to make a big move. But maybe once one of those domino falls, we'll kind of see how it plays out.
Yeah, and who knows who that team will be? Like, will it be what happened with the Kings and the Pacers, which was shocking? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, a couple of days before, it's Sabonis going to Sacramento, and the Pacers trading one of the bright young prospects of the NBA to the Kings, in a deal that nobody saw coming at all.
Which has worked out for both teams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Halliburton going to the Pacers, rather. That was, and that's a trade that you're right. The Kings are the 3 seed in the Western Conference, which I did think that maybe they'd improve. I really like the Mike Brown hiring. I did not think they'd be at the 3 seed. I mean, that's incredible. And the Pacers have been in playing contention now. Halliburton getting hurt has really screwed their whole situation up. Now they're kind of in a tailspin, but we'll see if maybe this is kind of what happens with that trade. Maybe this is a deal where the Knicks send out a young player, whether it's Barrett or whether it's Toppin, and those guys thrive in Toronto, and then maybe OG ends up being even a better player with the Knicks. Who knows? But this trade deadline is going to be interesting. There's so much parity. There's so many people packed up at the top and people packed up at the bottom. Like the Eastern Conference, you got 5 teams all packed up real close to each other. I think all of them feel like they could beat each other in the playoff series. Yeah. And the West, you got 2 teams at the top, but then you got all these teams from 3 to essentially like 10 that are all within just 3 games of each other.
Yeah, 3 to 13. The Lakers are, I think, like 3 games back in the loss column from the 5 seed. It's just
nuts. It's crazy. I'm very curious what this will mean for like viewership for the rest of the NBA season, how this affects the playoffs, because I think that there's been a concept that the NBA would like to be like the NFL in terms of getting hyper parity. I technically I really don't love hyper parity in the NFL. I think in some ways it's kind of hurt the product of the game recently, of late. But the NFL is king. So, just because I'm a dope who doesn't understand seeing all these mediocre teams play each other for 17 games and why we need to see that, doesn't mean that the rest of America doesn't want to see that. So seeing these teams be so packed and so close, how that affects trade deadline, how that affects fan interest moving forward throughout the season, I think is going to be a fascinating tale for this 2023 season.